Good evening. So, welcome to Day 3 of Public Art Matters. My name is Samuel Mays, Director of Projects Middle East for UAP. So, over the last 3 afternoons, we've been running artist workshops, discussing the life cycle of public artworks from concept through to delivery. It's been really encouraging to see the excitement, engagement, and interest that local artists and curators have about the future of public art in Riyadh and further afield. This evening is the last of the seminars focused on public art. Over the last 2 nights, we have taken a deep dive into public art and the cultural and creative infrastructure to inspire and invigorate a new era in creative thinking in Saudi Arabia. Tonight, we will be introduced to new technologies that are being exploited to extend an artist's practice and process. We will start with a keynote presentation by Dr. Cori Stewart, founder and CEO of the Advanced Robotics Manufacturing Hub in Australia. Dr. Cori will then be joined by Ms. Daniah Al-Saleh, artist and winner of the 2019 ITHRA Art Prize. Unfortunately, Dr. Elgibreen has had a last-minute change to her itinerary and won't be able to attend this evening. However, we're very thankful for all the support she's provided to us over the last few weeks as these sessions have been curated. However, and on a more positive note, we're thankful that Miguel Blanco Carrasco, Executive Director of Noor Riyadh, and his colleague Nouf Almoni have been able to join us for tonight's session at short notice. So to begin this evening, I'm pleased to introduce Dr. Cori Stewart, winner of Women in Technology Professional Leader in 2020. Throughout her career, Cori has brokered large-scale partnerships between industry, research institutions, governments and the community. She has held senior university appointments and government policy roles in industry development, the digital economy, creative industries, and innovation. Dr. Cori heads up the Arm Hub, a not-for-profit company on a mission to digitally transform Australian industry. I'm really excited about what Cori has to talk about tonight. I work in the building next door to the Arm Hub, and whilst we work in this amazing workshop, we get to walk next door and see the most extraordinary things going on with robotics and new technology. So please welcome Cori.
Fantastic. Thank you, Samuel. So good evening. It's such a pleasure to be here and be able to speak with you this evening. And I'd really like to thank the Biennale and UAP for inviting me along to Saudi Arabia. I've learnt so much even in the days that I've been here. And it's just an important time, I guess. It's the first sort of Biennale, what a significant event to be hosting, and then it's also hearing so much about the city's development and in public art. And as Sam said, so those who've attended the last few days, we've really looked at public art practices, we've taken a global view of city development, and tonight I feel like I'm really rolling up our sleeves and going to have a bit of a deep dive into technology. So I feel a little bit like it's an extension of your workshops, some of you in your workshops today. I'll be talking about technology as a tool that can extend artist practices, but it's important that I tell you I'm not an artistic practitioner, so we really get to dive into that as part of the panel. And I really want to sort of break that open a bit too and move beyond just the artist practice to start to think about how new technologies are part of our everyday. And I'm going to ask you to sort of engage with me a little bit on that one. So get ready to talk back to me at different times. I'm really doing that because I know many of you are creatives, and sort of opening that conversation to a wider kind of remit about technology is something that, could create new ideas and opportunities for you. So first of all, I think it's important I tell you a little bit about the company that we founded, being the Arm Hub. So I was working in a university, and when I founded the Arm Hub, we were working with industry to commercialise R&D across the sciences and technology field, but also in design. So my position is actually in design. So what we notice when we're working with new companies is a lot of smaller companies can't access that kind of innovation capability. So government and industry really bandied behind us to build a new company and roll it out of the university so it's much more agile, much more able to sort of take on and run at the fast pace that industry wants. It was quite a significant feat. The university hadn't before rolled out a separate company and a not-for-profit company at that. So if I go back through my time a little bit, I worked a lot in government too, government policy and then political advisor role, then into the university doing research and R&D development. And it took a couple of years to build the ARM hub, and it's been going for 2 years. So it's really got its training wheels on now, and we're really going full pelt ahead with a whole range of industry sectors. So we work with a lot of the priority industries that are set in Australia, so anywhere from food and beverage to medical to creative industries, construction. We work across the whole range, and we do these kind of what we call platform technology engagement. So robotics, AI, immersive technology that I'm going to talk about today are really key ones, but there's others too, like new materials. I'll have a slide to talk about that as well. So UAP is very dear to the ARM Hub. It was really our first major project. In fact, I was still working in the university when we were working with UAP, so we've been working with them for about 5 years now. And in this picture here, you can really see the UAP team, which is a lot of the manufacturing team, and the technical team at UAP, alongside Matt Tobin, one of the owners, and you've got alongside them a whole range of experts from the university. So you've got one of Australia's leading roboticists there, you've got architects, digital designers and integrators and software writers. It's this team that started to work with UAP to automate its processes. I'll be coming back to some of those stages in UAP. You'll actually see a lot of that technology in operation. But I will focus just briefly on what the model for the ARM Hub is, because yesterday we heard a little bit about the importance of building infrastructure that's going to help realise a kind of industrial capability for Saudi Arabia. So in the creatives, that's about being able to create large-scale public art and be able to do it with accuracy, on time, on budget, and keep that process going and build an art ecology. But it's the same in every other industry sector. So some of this infrastructure, like the ARM Hub, is here in Australia to build that infrastructure and ensure it has an ongoing benefit across the nation. So it might be something that's of interest to Saudi Arabia. So the three key services the ARM Hub offers industry is we do industry engagement, we work with industry, demonstrate technologies, we show how technology can be used in a whole range of different contexts and industries. We offer commercial solutions, so we team up, we get our expert teams with the teams in industry to start to demonstrate and trial and test new technology, so get it to a prototype stage or even sometimes a full commercial solution. And we build long-going innovation partnerships with the universities. So for those companies that are actually able to sustain large-scale innovation projects, they can do that often very successfully with the universities. I'll be very interested to know how the universities work here in Saudi Arabia and how that those sorts of partnerships may be possible here. The particular niche area that the ARM Hub fills is that in Australia, 97% of our industries are what we call small to medium enterprises. So they're 200 staff or less, and the small ones are 20 staff or less. And the majority of the companies, in fact 93% of the companies in Australia are actually in that 20 or less category. So these are the companies that actually find it very, very difficult to access the innovation ecosystem that sits in Australia, and it typically sits in the universities. Universities in Australia are very good at working with very large-scale global companies. That's sort of how it works. So this is a kind of a complementary piece of infrastructure to being able to really drive the engine room for innovation in the nation. So you can see the circular middle rung are really the technical capabilities we have. In short, we're very, very good at AI and robotics in terms of our broad team capability. We're also working and starting to work with quantum computing as it comes on board and is rapidly transforming industry. I think the industry that's really engaged in that space most is defence, so it's probably no surprises. But as soon as you're starting to deal with quantum computing, you're also dealing with companies that are very vulnerable to cyber attacks. So we already have with many of our companies malware alerts and payment requests and ransomware. So with quantum computing, that only escalates that requirement to be able to keep businesses secure as they go as well. So we're building our quantum capability and project brief alongside our cyber capability. And the ecosystem that you're seeing across the top there, the small to medium enterprises, that's the SMEs. And we do work with large companies because we do recognise that's often where projects come from. So in public art, that could be the very large commissioning companies. They're really important because they really provide the work for SMEs, so we'll work with them as well. But we're really about building the ecosystem. So today, though, I think I want to spend a little bit of time doing a technology deep dive into 3 key areas, so artificial intelligence, immersive technologies, and advanced robotics. And like I said, we really look at our technical capability as being able to work faster, smarter, and safer. And it's no different, I think, in many ways in the creative industries. I know you'll have other questions you ask of technology. You'll have aesthetic and cultural questions. But really when it comes to extending your practice, you want to be able to make things faster, smarter, and safer. And it often takes out all the really dull and tedious tasks that you might have to do in a practice as well. So that goes for all sorts of industry sectors as well. You want to really get rid of the dirty, the dull, and the dangerous tasks. So artificial intelligence. Has anyone got a technology background in here who, do you spend a lot of time at university? Oh, here we go. So this will be a great exploration. We'll have a lot to talk about hopefully on the panel, but hopefully others as well. So, I'm going to keep it fairly light, but it's just to make sure we have a broad shared understanding of some of these capabilities. So if AI is really the capability of a machine to imitate intelligent human behaviour, so I will think there's lots of ways of dissecting AI, but I think the most useful one is to think about the 5 key methods that you use to create AI. So machine learning, it's really looking at large data, usually historical data, that can help predict the future. And you see things like recommendation systems. One of the ones that's most common to me every day is, ordering your groceries. It knows what you're going to do. It starts to recommend new things. It's integrating large databases. And machine learning is actually a basis for much of the AI that follows. So I'm describing this because as I go through technology, you'll start to see how some of these methods might be integrated in the technologies you might want to use. Human language processing, I think we are all seeing that come to the absolute fore with our iPhones. Siri is getting very, very effective, and I think you can all remember it hasn't been too long since Siri was really good at picking up our own nuances in our language. I'm not sure how it's going here, but there was a long time a good old Australian accent wasn't as well recognised as the American accent, but that's changing. So the other really familiar one is like Elixir in your houses, maybe in your rooms. One that we use a lot in our work is computer vision. So that's being able to use photographic and video work as a database, as an intelligent system, to build that database and use it in a machine learning way, to understand what is the essential information and the nuances of the patterns in the data, and use that to make intelligent decisions, again, and potentially predict the future. So automated planning is also really important. As you start to bring all of these processes together, you can actually take the human out of the loop in many, of the processes. And I often think of Amazon. They get an order in, they send off a robot, they go into the stack and they pick out all the things that they actually need from that stack, put it on a conveyor belt, gets quality assured, all automatically, there's no human here, gets packaged up, gets invoiced, and it's posted. So that's an example of a kind of high-level automated planning process. And the last one, I think might be of particular interest to creatives, is sort of looking at expert systems. And I won't worry about the knowledge representation yet, but expert systems. So when the expertise and what you want is actually, housed within you, not maybe a big database, you're the expert, and what you're trying to do is train the system, engineer a knowledge system. So an example in another industry sector would be if you're a cancer expert and you're identifying cancer cells, say I was an expert and I worked with 100 colleagues who were particular experts in this kind of cancer cell identification, you would be going, yes, that looks like a precancerous cell, and you'd be training the machine. You might be validating it against the results of cancer as well as you go to build the complexity into the machine. But after a while, and probably not far down that process, that machine would be much smarter than the individual assessor of that cancer. And that's already happened. You'd be really expert training these machines to be more accurate, to be more precise than a human could ever be. But it would be interesting to think about the creative processes. How might you train a machine to give it exactly what you want back? And what would make it as smart as you, or possibly smarter? And are you happy with the results of what that might be, and how would you test it? But I'm quite interested. So if you've got AI in your own practice, or you're using AI every day, does anyone want to throw out to me, and I can announce it so the recording can hear? How are we seeing AI in our everyday? Does anyone want to throw it? Every day, it's all around us all the time. Come on. Who's gonna say something first? You've got AI probably all on you in your phones. Emails, that's absolutely. It predicts what you're going to write, doesn't it? And probably many other ways. Yep, absolutely. And it will coordinate, it'll probably anticipate that, absolutely. So advertising, those recommendation systems are absolutely using AI, building, real-time database systems together all the time. So these are things you can actually build and think about in your production of art, or the way you understand the engagement. And certainly the top uses of AI are really around security and surveillance as well. So I think when you're thinking about the public art, are people going past what you're seeing? Is probably cameras on a lot of things. In Australia, I'll give a good Australian example, like AI is on all the livestock, from prawns to cows to horses. It's all in tagged, or it's actually implanted, or it's on the scanning of their hides, just to be a very Australian example there. It's almost everywhere you go. And this is an example I've chosen from the Arm Hub. So to welcome to our warehouse in Brisbane, UAP's big warehouse is next to it. I've intentionally picked a fairly mundane example, but to show that AI, when it's used in the world most of the time, and it might be your practice, is really to take out the dull and the tedious tasks. That's its main purpose in the world. So this project we're doing is with a commercial laundry. And there's only one process in commercial laundries these days, apparently globally, that's not automated. And that is to lie a towel flat before it goes in the folding machine. No one's probably thought it's significant enough to change, but it's actually a very, very complex algorithm. And we've used a kind of agile AI algorithm, which means it's a kind of a short and growing algorithm process rather than training a whole machine. So this is one of our robotic engineers at the Arm Hub. He's telling you the robot has to pick up a towel. He did this in about 4 hours. It has to find a corner. It has to be able to pick up the corner. Of course, it will be automated now, but this is the early testing phases. It has to go through some kind of mandrel so it can actually see where the other corner is. You get excited about weird things when you get involved in AI. It can automatically use the vision systems. It knows it has to shake out the towel because it has to be able to identify where the other corner is, and it can only know that it's going to fall that way. So it can see it's using vision systems and algorithms to identify corners. And I like this bit, it even knows it has to flick it over the edge. So, that's within 4 hours. That was just testing that it's possible. Now, the actual process of getting that commercialised is a whole nother story, but it just shows that you can use kind of certain AI algorithms to do very mundane things, and this will probably transform someone's job. So at the moment in commercial laundries, someone sits in 50 degrees plus heat. That might not mean too much to people here when it's really hot, but it's hot, drinking water, it's a horrible job. You can use that person to do higher order tasks. They can manage the robots, they can skill them. Now, as someone who is a great appreciator of art, I've put throughout this slide a few artworks that I've really enjoyed, and I'll just explain them and we can talk about other artworks as we go along the day. But this is Flower Meadow by a Swiss arts collective called AI Art, and they worked with an engineering company, but essentially it was a beautiful installation because there was a whole range of flexible screens that moved in and out, large blossoming flowers, but the flowers were taken from a real-time AI system that kept continually changing, and it would be searching for particular colours of flowers. So these blossoming flowers are installed, I guess, in one large room. They will move around, but you'll never get the same blossoming flower at any time for this art installation, and it was incredibly compelling. You could see the different colours coming in, and you could exist in that space, and it would be one continuous bloom after bloom of colour that was never the same. Immersive technology. This is a really important one for doing, really design to manufacture, really reducing the design to manufacture phase in the construction of a lot of, industrial settings. Virtual reality, it's totally immersive. Augmented reality means you've really just got another layer of information, but you still exist in the physical space, and you can still see the physical space. And mixed reality is actually a combination of those technologies plus 3D imagery as well. I've got a question because, a bit like the last one, but who is using immersive technology? So for me, I only see it at work. But do people here, are you seeing it anywhere else? Are you working in it in your art practice? Are you going out? Do you have it at home, playing games? No, I don't know. Yeah, it's funny. I really don't think we use it a lot. It's good to know we're a bit the same. I don't seem to use it a lot in the kind of everyday environment, but it's certainly been a transformational tool in industry. It's doing things. UAP is a really good example, and I'll use their example because it's a creative example. But UAP here, this is Luke Harris, one of the staff. He's 3D sculpting using virtual reality. So really what was happening in UAP prior to this process, and it's still used but when it's necessary, but the pattern making process was manual. Someone, an artisan who'd been working for 20, 30 years, was manually making up the marquettes. If something needed to be changed, you'd take that material and you'd dispense with it and you would start again until you got what you needed, and you really couldn't change it on the fly. So by being able to sculpt in virtual reality, you can press edit undo and you can go back and do it again. You're also going straight to digital. So you're making an artwork that is a digital file that once it's created and you're happy with it, whether you're working with a technical team who's helping you or whether you're actually doing it as your own art practice, you can say, send that to the robot and mill it out. So you're really getting away from a lot of process. You're shortening that design to manufacture stage, and invariably you're taking out important health and safety processes around materials, waste and sustainability. It's actually a really important and useful tool when it's relevant to the process that you're trying to set. So I think as creatives too, you can, say, take in a maquette of something that you might want for public art. It's often you've got to blow it up, see what it looks like at large scale. You can put on the VR goggle sets, you can look at the size and scale, you can walk around it, you can move things around. So VR is an incredibly good development tool for that process as well. In this piece of software, this UAP was using an off-the-shelf piece of software, and we've been looking with them to do a few things like being able to do estimator tools, like how much material have I used, or is this structural engineering part actually going to, meet the engineering requirements. These are probably the finer, harder R&D challenges that we have set ourselves that we still need to achieve. But you can achieve so much just from this phase. You can really tell, what you can subtract and manoeuvre material, et cetera, et cetera. So that's really significant. Can you imagine if you were creating this in copper and your final result was using maybe a third more material than you anticipated because you had to weigh it, then you'd have to go back and remake it. These are some of the examples. So this project here at 30 Collins Street built a facade, ultimately up on the building there. It was milled out by a robot, and there were still some hand-done finishes and polishes here at the end. So augmented reality. So this is another work, Waterside Park, that UAP are doing. Here you're starting to see two of UAP's manufacturing team assemble the artwork. So instead of getting a whole bunch of papers, taking it down to the manufacturing floor and that person having to sit there and say, oh, how do I create that in space in 3D, and then try and assemble it. You can put on the augmented reality, you can start to build the artwork. You can see there that gentleman is placing the artwork, the other one is actually spot welding it into place. So it's incredibly accurate, it saves a lot of time. So there's not that many environments yet that are using, in the Australian context anyway, augmented reality on the manufacturing floor, but they are using it a lot for quality assurance, so checking something is meeting the specifications. They're using it a lot in building sites to do things, all of the kind of building information modelling systems, electricity systems, etc. All of that now is done by augmented reality. So here's Luke Harris again. This is just an example on video. When UAP set out doing this process using augmented reality, here he's just marking it up, and those green bars needed to be soldered on. They started a process where they used the traditional 2D design process, and then they used augmented reality at the same time to see how the process would go. It was done and out the door before the plans had made it down to the manufacturing floor. So it really gave them a lot of opportunity to basically ensure their competitiveness, make sure they can do novel and new tasks for companies and really come in and offer the client, in this case artists and designers and architects, a much wider palette of what they can achieve within a certain budget. And trying to bring it all together now, we're about to talk about robotics. It's coming, so there the robot is milling out the torso. Another use of the augmented reality that was an extreme challenge was the painting of Ronnie Van Holt's Walking Boy t-shirt. So to do that in a manual process, you would have had to tape it all up. It would have taken a considerable amount of time. In AR and VR, you can actually just paint directly on it. So we're talking about mixed reality. I thought I'd put in a piece of work that I really liked. This is by an artist called Recode, an English-based artist. So what I really liked about it was it can be experienced just as a video or footage, but it's as if you were potentially walking along. The angle of the camera is perfect, and you may have happened to get out your camera and take this footage yourself. So her work can be viewed as an image, but also in AR and VR at different times. So she really does embrace that mixed reality format that's coming along more and more. Advanced robotics. Now I'm feeling really at home. The Arm Hub works with a lot of the universities in Queensland, where we're from, has in Australia some of the world's leading roboticists. It's just the way it's worked. It's a hub for robotics in the Southeast Asia region. And so we work with industrial robotics, so you've seen a bit of that with UAP, and you'll see more. Particularly, that's normally the big, industrial arms. Collaborative robotics, so this image here, this is my Chief Operating Officer, another Samuel. Basically, it means that you can touch robots that are designed to be working with humans that are safe for humans to use. So at the moment, we're building a whole new system for collaborative robots that can tell you and anticipate with you and show you what are you going to do next. And the robot has to be able to tell you what it's going to do next, and you need to be able to tell it what's going to happen next to make it safe. And this is the next phase of robotics that's going to roll out across a whole range of industries. Collaborative robotics really epitomise robotics as a tool. You can take them anywhere with you, you can push them around, you can grab them, but they're there to help you out, like they're the modern day hammer, you know? Probably the most prominent area for robotics in terms of transforming industry is what they call UAVs, unmanned autonomous vehicles. So we've got automated cars, we've got automated submarines, we've got drones, we've got aeroplanes, we've got trolleys and forklifts and trucks and all of these machinery pieces that are automated. So really the robot is the thing out in the world that does it autonomously. It's not connected to anything. The autonomous bit is the software. And social robots. So I don't know, how many people have you seen a humanoid robot of a different scale come and welcome you as you go into a foyer and ask you if you need anything. Maybe you've seen them at restaurants. They're using more and more around teaching, and particularly around teaching, if people have language challenges, they're using severe autism. It has a great application with social robots. Also, the elderly who experience dementia and loneliness and want company of a robot. These are the technologies that are being pioneered around social robotics. We don't actually do a lot of that at the Arm Hub because we tend to work with very large industrial industry, but the universities and the capability that we often pull into the Arm Hub also have social robotics capability. So I think you probably got it. So what's the difference between an old-fashioned robot, probably like the ones you saw doing on an car automation machine, like they would just punch out cars every day, to a robot that can see you coming and can move out of the way or do something intelligent. Do we know what the difference is? Yeah, so they're smart systems. They've used software, they've used AI or different types of machine learning. So here we are in UAP. So there was that artwork called Walking Boy. I'm going to tell you this is actually not a next generation robot. It's just a really good programmed robot that's been told through a program, just do this. Carve out this head. It's a digital file. It's been sent to the robot. If that styrofoam wasn't there, it would still try and do it. It can't see it. So if something was to go wrong, it's not going to change. It's just going to do it. It's dangerous as well because it's just going to do it. If there's a human there, it's just going to keep going. That's why it's in a cage. But it is an amazing thing to see something form out of a robot at scale. So our job over a 5-year period was to turn these kinds of robots into smart robots that can be used in manufacturing. We did employ and deploy collaborative robots at UAP as well, really to get rid of tedious tasks. So their expert polisher up here, Italian, really fastidious about polishing. Matteo, the team is smiling, he's very capable, but he had a job, what we call linear polishing, these very large sheets of metal that you can see installed here by an artist, Lindy Lee, in a foyer. They had to all be done by hand. He had 6 of them. He had to do them he couldn't do them in time on budget. It was going to really hurt his back. So he came across and said, what can we do about it? So over a 3-day period, he and our mechatronics engineer, he and she set up this collaborative robot here. You've probably seen these before. These are pretty much the standard collaborative robot now, these universal robots. And basically, each of the sheets, so you can probably see 4 sheets there, each of those sheets took 8 hours of polishing. The end result was the robot did 6 and the human did 2. So was able to do that on a continuous basis, get it out in time, bring it in under budget and not hurt Matteo. The good example for where I work is that people often think robots take jobs. This is a really good example of actually robots upskill capability. They allow you to do jobs safer and faster and smarter. I don't know, do you have that here too in Saudi Arabia where people fear that robots are going to take jobs? Is that a similar media? Yeah. So, I mean, our mantra is like robots create jobs. So we did actually, after 5 years, I think it was about 4.5 years, actually automate a robot. So it was a what a lot of the scientific stuff call it was a non-trivial task. I mean, it was really difficult. So here, what you saw there was a robot that could assess the level of polishing and the level of pressure required, could do it automatically, could do it safely with others. So it takes out a lot of the grunt work. So if you as an artist had to hand polish or even polish with a manual machine, aluminium to create your public artwork, you are either paying someone a lot to do it, and I've really learnt about all the grades of polishing, had no idea, or you're doing that yourself. So it's back-breaking work. So these are the kind of things where you can start to see the importance of making with tools. Now I'm going to show a couple of artworks because I can't help myself, but I'm not an artist, so we can talk about other artwork and my pleasures in some artwork. I saw this play just before I started the company. Huang and Kuka. It's actually a reasonably well-known work in the contemporary dance sphere. I don't know if you can tell what I'm going to say about it as someone who's more interested in the robot. But what I'm going to say about this is really dangerous. This robot is really dumb. So it's going to go ahead and dance like this regardless of what he does. So he's made it look like a love story. He's falling in love with the robot and it's amazing. I find it pretty amazing that they're allowed to do it. So if he got his head in the wrong place. But anyway, it's a beautiful artwork, isn't it? There we go. So I've got one more. Sorry about the slide, but I will press the button here. So one of the things that we've been doing in the team that actually have been working, are now working part of the Arm Hub, have really pioneered drones, drone technology. You'll see it now as a kind of mega public and popular event. Here's a really popular event. This is the Sydney New Year's Festival. It's really kind of joyous, it's like a massive disco. So it's really about mega events. But getting intelligent swarming and teaming robots in the hundreds and thousands is an amazing task to achieve. I'm sure this technology was definitely pioneered in the military context. It's eventually made its way through to kind of civilian applications, and you've now seen it at Olympics and whatnot. But I will show you what they did. It's an Australian company called Miragen for the Sydney New Year's Festival, rather than using fireworks. I've seen some very artistic applications of this over time, so here's just a very popular application. A bottle brush, a very famous Australian flower. So it's 500 small drones. So the fact that they don't hit each other, they don't move, it's extraordinary. If you think of it from a technical point of view. Also, they would all have to be programmed for cyber security in a very detailed way. So if someone could hack that, turn it into a weapon, you can tell where my mind goes, but these are the things you're now going to have to think about if you're using something like drones or drone technology. How do you secure that IT? And what's the risk? So these drones were made incredibly light. So one of the ways that they de-risk the profile of it, so they're only grams light, so it would be very hard to turn them into a large-scale weaponised environment where they're going to land on people or do something horrible. That could go on for a while. Oops. So that's really my talk for tonight. So I'm really here to say that next generation technologies are an amazing tool for artists to use. It might become clear that you won't be able to do all of these technologies and work with them yourself, but there's teams of people who can work with you and work with technologies. I'm sure you'll meet many of them across the world. So at the Arm Hub, we work across industries, and that's probably because Australia's not big enough to house its own technology innovation centre just for the cultural and creative arts. We work across industries, and also allows us to bring the technology that's happening in other industries and pull it across into other spheres. So I look forward to any questions you might have now or as part of the panel. Thank you.
Thanks, Cori. Very much like to introduce our esteemed colleagues from the North Festival to go through their presentation. Sorry, it was up on the screen. I thought we were going to Daniah. I'm just waiting to see what's happening up there. But anyway, please, Miguel. Sorry, did you have a presentation?
We do actually have some slides to share with you, which we hope they follow with the talk from Cori.
Cool, fantastic.
Thank you very much. Hello everyone. My name is Miguel Blanco. I'm the Executive Director of Noor Riyadh, and we are working as part of Riyadh Art, my colleague Nof Al-Munif and myself, who will be part of the panel. We're working to transform Riyadh into a gallery without walls. And part of this transformation and this effort is an annual festival of contemporary art and light, Noor Riyadh, that had its first edition in 2021. And we're going to follow on the path that Dr. Cori led, and look at some artworks that they use, some of the technologies that were mentioned, and also some of the plans that we also have for the future. We're going to start with a short video for those of you who might not have had the opportunity to visit Noor Riyadh last year. It's just 1-minute video, so you can get a glimpse of what the festival was. Is it possible to play the video? And we're going to give it one more try. If not, I will keep going through the slides. Technology. Well, it's a fantastic video. You should definitely look for it on Google, which is a great search engine that will lead you there straight away. We had a great opportunity to work with some incredible artists, many of them Saudi, many of them women. We actually 36% of the artists that were part of the first edition of Noor Riyadh Festival are ranked in the 500 top global artists. Here are some of the faces, and I'm going to run very, very quickly through some of these works. Team Labs, this is a generative work that actually interacts with the people in the room. So the closer you get, the flowers interact with you and they start growing more. So if you get closer to the actual screen and you stand still, then the flowers, they flourish and then the plants grow. If you go away, they disappear and they fade away. Eiman Elgibreen had this incredible piece about the future in the Gulf Peninsula, following on the narrative of his work, divided into 3 different screens where human, robots, and camels interact in this dystopian Gulf future, and it was a fantastic piece. Robert Wilson with his visual poem, Palace of Light, at Turayf Palace. It was a combination of video projection, sculptural work, and music. Saeed Kanhawi with a projection on My Mother's Rock. There was a very simple projection, but it was very interactive. This was one of the pieces that really drew the attention of the community. You could see families spending hours there with their kids playing with the sand. This is like a projection in sand. Tribute to Mohammed Al-Salam. This was rescued by the curator of the festival, Eiman Elgibreen, from a floppy disk that Mohammed Salim actually stored in the National Library, and the data in that floppy disk was then translated into these visual projections that were part of the tribute to Mohammed Al-Salim. Daniel Kanogar with a very interesting piece. This is a data generative piece, a projection in CAFT. It draws real-time information on electric storms all over the world, and it translates the intensity of the storms, the color of the lighting, and the speed of the lighting into this projection in the building in Sibra Tower. So we were seeing real time in Riyadh what was happening maybe on the other side of the world. Christopher Bowder, this is a kinetic projection and laser piece. The very poetic is a 30-minute loop that takes you through a journey of emotions using light, mirrors, and movement. Zaman Jassim with another sculpture projective piece resembling of the moon and the different moon phases. This was placed in the National Library. A projection tribute to Ali Ruzaiza, one of the leading Saudi artists, a fantastic piece on Masmak Fort. Suleiman Al-Salim with another interactive piece where you play with the projection, so it involved the audience and you had to work with your shadow, and then the projection was moving. It was a very fun interactive piece. Muhammad Sono with the Mayan ship Exodus, another sculptural projection with soundtrack accompanying the artwork. A massive piece that actually was here in Jax 1, where the Dana Wartani piece is at the moment of the Biennale. Wow, City Gates in Riyadh, with algorithm that actually created the path through the city and invited the guests to see Riyadh, how it is perceived from space. This is how you will see Riyadh at night from the space station. Karsten Holler playing with a very, very intense piece, light wall, and working to generate different emotions and sensations on the viewer. Margot Wade, fantastic piece, May We Meet Again, where she collected stories from the residents of Riyadh, speaking in Urdu, Tagalog, and Arabic, and sharing them in this water screen on the top of the National Museum. Submergence as well, playing with an algorithm that reacts to the music and to people. A fantastic loop by Lol Walhamoud. Her work draws into Arabic calligraphy, and this was an immersive experience placed in Kaft, the Infinite Blue. Picture Sender Machine, very, very popular with kids and families. It reacted to the movement and created this massively pixelated image on the back screen. Rafael Lozano-Hemmer, Recurrent Anaximander, a very interesting piece. This is also generative work that draws on data from NASA Solar Observatory. So what you're seeing there in real time is actually the explosions that the sun is experiencing at this moment. Well, not at this moment with the delay of the speed of light for us to be able to capture that data, but it is captured directly with NASA. Very, very interesting work. And Mohammed Al-Faraj with another video piece following again on his narrative, talking about identity in Saudi Arabia and the Gulf. Leo Villarreal, Corona, this is a piece inspired by the corona of the sun. It's on a generative piece, it's an algorithm. It doesn't draw on data, it just never repeats itself again, and it creates these patterns of white and black, and it's a mesmerizing piece. And Eiman Elgibreen with a fantastic immersive projection, Somewhere Beautiful. And those are some excerpts of the festival last year, many of them using technology, and many of them using data to generate the visuals that you've seen, others using algorithms. And you can see many of them at the moment. If you are interested in Riyadh Front, we have the Riyadh Art Hub, where you can see in 360 some of these artworks. You can also download it in our website. You can use VR. We have a VR tour of the exhibition from last year. And also for those in Jeddah, there's a Nur Riyadh capsule at High Jamil that will last until the end of the month. So these are some highlights of what Nur Riyadh was. For the next Nur Riyadh, we can talk maybe later, but we will have a lot of digital works, a lot of works using new technologies. Definitely AR will be important for the next edition. We will see NFTs in some way or form. We will work with VR as well, and with some more data and generative work. So we're very, very excited to explore technology as part of the Nur Riyadh Festival, and we look forward for all of you to see it and to join us in this journey. Thank you.
Thank Thank you, Miguel. Look forward to quizzing you on a few things about new technology and North Festival in a few moments. I would like to introduce Daniah Al-Saleh. Daniah has completed a Masters in Fine Arts in Computational Arts from Goldsmiths University of London. And while pursuing her studies, she was the recipient of the ITHRA Art Prize in 2019, a work that is now part of the permanent collection at ITHRA. She has exhibited across the Middle East, at the Hermitage in Russia, and Biennale in South America. Please welcome Daniah.
Hello, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Very glad to be here. I would like to thank the Biennale, the Diriyah Biennale, for inviting me, and UAP as well. I would like to, first of all, introduce who I am and what my art practice is. I was born and raised here in Riyadh, but lived between Saudi and the UK. My love for art was intuitive. From a very young age, as many artists would tell you, I loved drawing and making things, but for many reasons, I took a different path than art for my undergrad degree. Still, I had the urge to create and draw, hence I embarked on a path of self-learning. I started to learn by registering in workshops and courses for many years in Jeddah. I studied with Dorothy Boyer at Sophia Ben Zager Atelier and embarked on more courses abroad. In 2017, I started my MFA at Goldsmiths University of London in Computational Arts. Embarking on this course pushed the trajectory of my art practice into different ways of thinking, exploring different materials and mediums, and articulating concepts in a more of theoretical framework. I graduated in September 2020 during the height of the pandemic. And if anyone is wondering what computational arts is, it is simply making art with technology, such as using coding, programming code that is, physical computing, such as sensors, robots, and motors, virtual reality engines, machine learning, and so on. Reflecting on what my art practice revolves around, then and now, it has always been on social commentary and cultural conditioning. I question behavioral patterns and paradigms in the everyday, examining things that we take for face value. What I look for is the ordinary, the mundane, the ubiquitousness of things in the mainstream, looking into cultural tropes, memory, connectiveness, and division. My approach often is suggesting alternative means of looking behind this inquiry. My work often comments on human fragility, insecurity, and vulnerability. In 2018, there was the second open call for the ITHRA Art Prize. For those who aren't familiar with ITHRA, ITHRA is the King Abdulaziz Center for World Culture and was built as part of Saudi's Aramco vision to be an ambitious initiative for public and culture. It is a beautiful building located in Dhahran in the eastern region of Saudi. The ITHRA Art Prize was launched in 2017 in contemporary art as a means to support, fund, and promote emerging Saudis. Saudi-based talents, and has extended its geographical reach to include established contemporary artists that are from or based in one of the 22 Arab countries. The art prize was for a proposed submission, and the winning proposal will get their work realized. I submitted my proposal, not expecting to succeed at all, and to my delight, I received the phone call December 2018 informing me of my winning proposal. This was in late December, and the artwork should be ready in Dubai for the Dubai Art Fair around the 15th of March 2019. As exciting as it was winning such a prize, I was terrified. I had less than 3 months, and I was faced with the challenges of, it was December, holiday season. I was in the UK. I had 2 projects to submit for my term at university, and I had no previous experience in creating large-scale work. The proposed work addresses the abstraction of sound, linking sound to meaning and meaning to forms of expression, reflecting on the power of language and communication, particularly to the phonemes of the Arabic alphabet, which consists of 28 letters. Visually, I was a big fan of the early computer art of the 1960s, in particular the aesthetics of Manfred Moore and Michael Knoll. And for my piece, the visual aspect was influenced from those line abstractions. The difference was that in the 60s, the computers were huge mainframes, as big as a room, with code inserted as punch codes. As for my visuals, with the use of the coding program processing, it was a matter of a few lines of code. To be able to deliver the installation on time, I went to project manage Autopilot. I had to prepare visuals, figure a way to record to record the sound units of 28 Arabic alphabet letters, source 28 monitors, find a way to build the framework of the installation, have everything working together, and finally to deliver the piece in one, to deliver the work in one piece. I started off with the things I knew how to make, the visuals, managed to figure out how to create the shape, then make it rotate, all using only a few lines of code. Next, I had to create the sounds, and I did not have or know of any recording studios, so I created my own. I bought a really good microphone, a heavy blanket over my laptop and myself, and I would record the sounds at 4 a.m. in the morning, where the city was at its quietest, and it worked somehow. The sound, can you hear the sound? Okay. There you go. Did you hear it? Yeah. Okay. Next, I had to figure what type of monitors to use. Searching online, I decided to use NEC monitors, so I got one online as a test drive to see how would the visuals and sound appear and to fix appearances and resolution problems in my code. That was the easy part. Now I had to figure to get 28 monitors and have them all turned on simultaneously with one switch instead of 28 switches. As I mentioned, it was holiday season in the UK, so I decided this work needs to be made in Saudi and not in the UK. So I managed to find NEC representatives in Riyadh and started a discussion by sharing the installation with them and what they could do to help. But there was a problem. If I made an order of the monitors in Saudi, they will not be delivered on time. I had to order them in the UK and take them with me. Next, I had to find a way to build the framework structure that will hold the installation in place. The best option that would understand what I needed was a closet manufacturing company called Timrad. I gave them the sketch, a monitor, and what I needed, and they produced exact plans and measurements of the framework and started to build. Now I had only a few weeks before my deadline. I was in Riyadh, it was late February, and I did not have a place to construct everything together. I used the backyard of family members to build the installation. Timrad and engineers from NEC Riyadh joined forces, and over 3 days and many visits to different vendors to get needed equipment, the work came alive. The work finally arrived in Dubai with the help of Athar Gallery, who helped in logistics. And the installation was revealed at Art Dubai in 2019. The image you see here is where the piece is located right now to its permanent location at ITHRA. And you can see the cacophony of the noise in the background. Moving on to the work that I have here at the Biennale, that which remains. The artwork addresses memory, in particular individual memory versus collective memory, when faced with the rapid expansion of urban development and growth. It reflects on the personal, the preservation of personal memory, customs and habits, what is archived and what is forgotten with time, within cultural paradigm shifts. The work consists of 8 large paper cylinders, each is which of a diameter of 1 meter in diameter. 4 of those cylinders are large-scale paintings, and the rest are surfaces used for projecting video. The work here uses an AI technology, specifically GANs. So a GAN, a generative adversarial network, is a class of machine learning framework designed by Ian Goodfellow and his colleagues. What it does is that you give it a data set of images. It learns from this data, then creates similar images from what it's learned, and generates what is referred to as deep fakes. In this piece, my data set was images of people living in Saudi. This was challenging due to many reasons. Therefore, I had to scrape open source images and videos online and use personal footage that I took of the environment and of people with their permission. As easy as that sounds, it is actually a very laborious, boring job that takes weeks and weeks to achieve. Finding the data, sifting through the data, resizing, cropping, and improving the quality of the images. And this process is repeated over and over again over thousands of images. Then you take your prepared data set and you upload it to the GAN program, and it starts training from hours to days, even weeks, depending on what outcome one wants to achieve. Once that was created, I needed to start the painting side of the work. I decided that it needs to be created in Riyadh, so I had a temporary space set up as a working studio, got all my materials from London. For you to imagine the scale I was faced with, I had 4 large watercolor papers that were 3 meters by 1.5. So the total surface I had to paint was 12 meters by 1.5. I had to create a small timetable of what I needed to finish every day. Otherwise, I would lose track of time and would not be able to install on the dates that were set for the Biennale. The process was not straightforward. I had to choose images from the outcome of the machine learning training, had to prepare and edit them for printing, and then use that image and burnish it over the paper. It was a very physical process. Then start painting the bodies and the background. In total, I had to burnish and paint around 170 deep fake individuals. This time, I did not have to source out the rest of the equipment for installation. The Biennale was very supportive in providing all the projectors and lighting, and also provided the art handlers who amazingly installed and hung my work in the space provided. As you see here, the art handlers working hard to install the piece. And I would like to invite you to visit the piece after the talk at the Biennale. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Daniah. I'd like to invite the speakers up to join us at the panel now, please. I'm hoping this is on. Yep, it is.
Testing, testing.
Testing, testing. Yes, and I would like to introduce Nuf from Riyadh Art. I thank you and Miguel for attending tonight at such short notice.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Daniah, I'm really excited that that work was presented this evening, and we were discussing the AI component of it earlier in the day. What was particularly exciting was the mix of media that you've used and practice and process to get the work, you know, the AI through to the final piece. One thing that you mentioned this afternoon was the incredible time it took to do that data mining and so on.
Yeah.
And talking earlier, Cori, about the AI, is that the AI and the machine learning, is that something that's generally available now to the public, or do you really have to know where to look? And, you know, for something that took you months or weeks and months to prepare, what sort of timing are you looking at now for some of this work?
Well, I think in the case of your work, I think the only way you could have maybe sped that up is to ask someone to help you do the data labelling. Would have that been possible in this case?
No, because
You had to monitor each one of them, didn't
yes,
you? Yes.
because it's a small data set compared to the large data set
Yeah.
you see in other entities. So I was working with a few thousands.
Yeah.
I mean, compared to a few million. And I use programs online. I use a bit of Colab and Runway, and which helps a lot in the process and speed.
So there definitely are programs, depending on what you want to do, that you can use that are readily available, but you need to be able to use them to the effect that you want. One of the things that we do when we work with teams is get more hands on the job of labelling data and building the engines. Sometimes that beginning work is just a bit laborious, but it might save you thousands and thousands of hours later down the track.
Cool.
So I think other people can sometimes help, not always.
The human component keeps coming into the robotics and the new technologies. And I know there is this misconception about the robots taking over. And I know you've got plenty of answers to that, and that might come up again tonight. But from an artist's practice, is there a risk that the robots will dehumanise the artwork or take away the craftsmanship that's involved in the fabrication, do you think?
Yeah, I think you need to make a decision whether it's the right tool, and there'll be some instances where it won't be the right tool. If you want to make something that really does demonstrate that the hand carving of it, particularly in Australia when we're working a lot with our Indigenous communities, they really have a great tacit tooling aspect to a lot of their work. You might want to maintain using an artisan rather than a robot to do that. But maybe there's aspects that, can be done and automated. You can actually achieve a lot of different things with robots too. So sometimes it actually gives you novel and new capability that might be more liberating and, give artists a better and broader palette to work from. And I think one thing I noticed in the work that UAP were doing in collaboration with Arm Hub and the team is anytime you wanted to do anything that was perfectly cylindrical or round, all of a sudden you could create that much more accurately and you could do it at scale in a way that just wasn't possible because with the human eye, because the human eye would have to sort of sit there and judge, is that round, is that round? And, it never was perfect. But if you wanted it perfect, a robot's good at that. Yeah.
And also a reminder that there are some microphones floating around if anyone has any questions. At this moment in time, does anyone have a question that they'd like to pose to the panel? If not, okay, we'll keep going. Miguel, I have a question for you off the back of 2 years of COVID and 1,000 people hearing the term you're on mute and people getting used to new technologies. As the director of, what is probably the world's most significant light festival and new technology festival, do you ever have a fear about introducing new technologies into the public realm and things potentially not working or going a bit astray?
Thank you. We can probably answer that together. It's a great question, and And for us, I mean, Noor Riyadh is a festival to connect with the people of Riyadh. Obviously, we want to, it's an international festival, we're reaching out to the world, but it's a festival that first and foremost works with the community. And technology is a tool that the artists that we work with use. Artists are innovators, and as part of the innovation, technology plays a role. It played a role in the 19th century, 20th century, it plays a role now. So there's different technologies, new technologies. And the beauty of these technologies is that sometimes you don't need to go 3 layers deep. It's like people can just see an artwork and see it for what it is and appreciate the aesthetic value of it without going any deeper. But I mean, but for instance, Daniah's work at Īþrā, which is visually fantastic, but the moment you start just going deep into it, it's incredibly deep, and you just got all this data and all the phonemes of the Arabic language and how they translate into visuals is fascinating. But there are so many different layers, and it can be appreciated at different layers. So I think for us in Noor Riyadh, the fact that the artists we work with and the artworks that we present can be appreciated at those levels and are accessible to the people in Riyadh, I think for us is important, I believe.
Yes, I totally agree with you, Miguel. And with the artworks that you've seen, there was technology in it, and there was AI in it. But now we are thinking to go the extra mile into AR and visual reality, etc. Especially people always uses their phones. And once, like, for example, a projection is on a wall or on an artwork, people will use their phones and see what's next with these kind of technologies.
Absolutely. I mean, the phone is key here. Does that add an exciting element and layer to the way that you're exhibiting the works and the way that you're able to interact with the audience on an ongoing basis over the festival?
Definitely. I mean, for us, last year was difficult because of the restrictions that we had with COVID in engaging people, but we had a very, very successful attendance. 320,000 people visited Noor Riyadh and across the 14 different locations, including the exhibition, and there was a high level of interaction. Like we obviously had an app, and there was like a lot of information that people could access through the QR codes and the app if somebody wanted more information on the work. And there's, as I mentioned before, there's an element of virtual reality that is part of the legacy of Noor Riyadh that people can access and is available all the time. So the way that people interact with the works and the use of the mobile phones as part of the visitor experience is definitely something that we definitely consider.
As an artist working in this space, are you excited about the tools that exist at the moment? You know, you've got the VR and AR goggles. You're obviously an expert at the coding and the AI and running the programming. Where do you see things going in the next 3 to 5 years in terms of both your practice and what else might be happening?
Well, the thing is, I dabble a little bit in everything. So I'm not really an expert. You know, with coding, it takes such a long time debugging and trying to figure out how the algorithm I want to make. So what I tend to do is start with the concept first, the theory behind it, and then apply those things as tools to help me, like a paintbrush. With what I expect for the future is more technological experiments, because hardware is getting cheaper. Software is more accessible. And more people are aware of the amazing possibilities of these technologies and what they can do.
We have a question. Is the mic available to be passed around, please? Sorry, we just want to make sure we get the mic for the recordings. just in the centre. Thank you.
My name is Eiman Elgibreen. I am a civil engineer, and I like art and culture and everything. My question is about, I like the idea about the public art and the using of AI machine, like to produce beautiful things. Can we see these arts like in restaurants, for example, or in our homes, for example, like in kids' playing room? Like an engineering field, like in engineering offices, like small to medium offices, when they do have like interior design, we just like do the wall furniture. Like, can we replace these things like to have in our ceiling like something floating, like beautiful things? Another question is about, is it the time for the AI to be learned for like schools instead like of just like teach them like how to use the computer?
Who would like to start? Go, Cori.
I'll start with the back one. I definitely think it's time, well, certainly in the Australian context, children are learning from early ages to work with data and understand data. It's quite extraordinary, I think. My 8-year-old son's well surpassed me, I think, sometimes. I think that the way we engage with it will happen quite rapidly. So it's in so many things, so we might not all need to be technically proficient and data scientists and, you know, walking around mathematicians, because often that's the kind of skill capability that is key to creating new forms and really pioneering AI. But there's going to be so much that we can use that's going to be able to solve problems and create beautiful things for us now. And I really feel like, Samuel, you might be really good to ask the question of how accessible are these beautiful works that get made, or maybe someone else. You've got the Light Festival, but you know, I do see the work that public artists are doing in public parks, in people's offices, maybe less so in the home. But I think, you know, maybe the platforms that we have to access art are becoming multiple. So public galleries on your screen at home. I know at home I have a TV screen that just constantly moves the images that are in an art gallery that I like, and they move and change. I mean, these are creeping in through these digital platforms in our everyday life, but I'm sure other people have
absolutely
equal experience.
There are restaurants, honestly, they're using AI technology, and like where you sit on a table and there's like projection where the food and the change of the color of the food that you're eating, also the drinks that you're drinking, the change of colors with only projections and just technology.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, to use a really terrible and basic example, Pokemon Go, when people used to walk around, showed how accessible it is. And so to have augmented reality artworks or virtual artworks, virtual reality artworks, it's becoming much more accessible. There are some very high-profile artists that are doing a lot of augmented reality work. Through our work, we're seeing a number of clients who are wanting to commission that sort of augmented reality work into their buildings or their developments. And that technology is getting far more affordable, and it also opens up a whole lot of other opportunities for commissioners.
Yeah.
You've got, virtual reality games. Gaming is a big industry right now, and it's amazing, and it's taking over a lot of the things, because the virtual reality is not only used in gaming, it's used in therapy as well.
You can always, you mentioned interior design. As an interior architect and designer myself, there are applications and platforms where you can just take a picture of your living room and you can use augmented reality just to style the whole space with just using your phone.
And I would suspect that a whole generation are starting to create works in the metaverse and going digital straight away and maybe never coming out into the real tangible world. I'm not sure, but maybe that's something that you know more about than I do.
Are we going to have an Arm Hub here in Saudi?
Sorry, what was that?
You said like you have an Arm Hub warehouse in Brisbane, right?
Yeah.
Are we going like to have the same in here in Riyadh?
Well, I think, so the Arm Hub's like a not-for-profit company, and we're invested in by government and universities to really accelerate. It's a model that I think Saudi could use equally, and we would be happy to, be like sister cities in figuring out how to build that capability if it was something that maybe your Ministry of... Do you have a Ministry of Industry in the way you have a Ministry of Culture?
Energy.
I'm not sure.
Energy?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. But these are, I think, some of the questions that the country and maybe the city can ask itself about what is the essential infrastructure required to deliver on the bigger visions that are already set for this city. Their public art agenda is just extraordinary in itself. So, yeah, I think that, they should be asking that question.
As a follow-up to that, I was going to ask about the kind of timeframes and programs that Saudi should be thinking about. I know how long it's taken to get Arm up, but there is a great deal of energy and passion about making things happen here. What would be the next steps, and how long do you think it would take to implement something?
I feel like maybe Saudi, if it decided it could do it, it could just sort of do it. It seems like it takes, that there is some decision-making once that decision has happened, that things can maybe move really reasonably fast and get the level of support that they need here. I think perhaps in Australia, it's a slow and steady process. I think the key thing for the Arm Hub, the reason why it existed and worked, because it's the first of its model in Australia. There's no other similar organisation. So it sort of had to, everyone sort of says, what is it? How does it work? Why does it exist? But the ingredients in it was that people wanted to work there. People wanted, and some of our, UAP was one of our major partnerships. So some of the AI professors and lecturers and technical team that were employed directly, they were thinking, this is amazing. I get to make some of the biggest artwork in the world. And that was a thrilling and also a technically challenging opportunity. There was designers and architects and all working in the same team, and they just really liked to collaborate. They really wanted to do something new and exciting, and has really held us together for now about 5 years. And we've just sort of grown teams and capability as we've needed. But people and culture wanting to do something has been a very important ingredient for the success of the Arm Hub.
Does anyone else have a question? Oh, yeah, we've got a few questions.
Hi, my name is excuse me. My name is Rob Arthur from Riyadh Art PMO. I've got a question, particularly for Cori, but possibly across the panel, if possible. And I'm thinking through the conversation, the influence technology has on creatives, or what influence creatives have on technology. And how is that influence going to evolve, do you think, going forward? It's a biggie.
Yeah, we've been, as you sort of saw in my presentation, quite clear initially. I think obviously it goes both ways. There's influence happening both ways, but I think it's been really useful to think about technology as a tool in the first instance, a tool that can help you, you work with an idea as an artist and a concept, and you go and then you choose the tools, like Daniah said, to realise that outcome. I think that keeps your practice going. It probably is less disruptive. Like, there's so many ways you can tackle a challenge with different technologies, and maybe you don't even need technology as an artist to, solve what you'd like to create. It's just there to extend a practice and make something bigger or better. But as you saw by some of the works that I chose, I sort of, particularly that one about the Huang and the Kuka, that was obviously a moment where the robots have inspired a whole new commentary on modern life and, love of inanimate objects and robots, and this discourse is in through our popular cultures right through to our creative culture. So it's going to go both ways, but I think artists probably really need to stay core to their practice and then think about technology as a tool first.
As an extension to your answer, I was actually going to ask a question of the festival. And there are a number of artists that were in the previous iteration who are extremely technologically savvy. I'm sure that there will be similar artists in the next iterations. Having now gone through the first festival, do you see that there's opportunities to really, from a curatorial point of view, once the next artists are selected, really push them to extend their practice and really push the boundaries of technology and VR and AI and AR?
Go ahead.
Sure. No, absolutely, and that's a really, really good question. And to lead on from what the question also from Rob, we can see in the exhibitions every day there's more and more technology that is, for the past few years, is kind of like avant-garde. And we can see even in the Biennale there's some fantastic pieces. Daniah's piece that uses generative work. We also have Muhannad Shono, like anthropomorphic robotic figure, which is fascinating. John Gerard animation with the figure that is covered in leaves, and again is another generative work that doesn't ever end, dancing. So there's more and more in the festival we had, and probably in 2022 we will have more works that they draw in data and in this technology and in AI, because it's just the way that artists work. It's a tool that is available for them, and I think there's so many different uses, and for many artists, even if they are just working on a narrative that is foreign to AI, they can probably find an application where AI builds into their own narrative and their own story and their own work in a way they didn't see before. So a lot of them are actually just working with these new technologies, even just when they are keeping with the actual narrative that they may have been just working on for decades. So I think there will be more and more of these technologies being incorporated into the work of artists that we will see definitely at the festival, and but elsewhere as well. I think the Biennale, for anyone who hasn't seen these works and so many of the others, is a fantastic opportunity to go and explore these type of works.
Is the Biennale, is it all temporary works? The festival?
The festival.
They're temporary works, but there are a couple of artworks that can be permanent as well. So
I think actually that's a good point, because the festival is ephemeral. It's a 17-day festival with a 3 months exhibition, but it's part of Riyadh Art, which is an initiative to build more than 1,000 public artworks in the city of Riyadh over the next few years until 2025. Maybe, Nov, if you, just, since we can use this as an intro, maybe to talk about Riyadh Art a bit.
Yeah, Riyadh Art. So Riyadh Art is, as most of you know, one of the 4 grand projects of Riyadh City. And it's basically transferring the city into a gallery without walls. And as Miguel said, we are targeting more than 1,000 artworks all around the city of Riyadh. Noor Riyadh is just one of the 12 programs, which is only 17 days of a festival with a 3 months exhibition as well, talking about only light art. But of course, the rest of the programs is all public artworks.
So I have a question actually for Daniah, if that's okay. But I would like to if you can elaborate a bit more on what got you started on building work, the way that you're using data to build your own work. What was the trigger? What did you see, or how did it begin? This interest in data generative work?
A pure chance. Actually, it was fate that stepped in. When I applied to university, I applied for something else. I did not get accepted, and they offered me a seat on this program. I looked it up. I looked really interested. I didn't know to code when I started, so they teach you everything. And it just changed my practice completely.
That's amazing, thank you.
Thanks.
I know that there was another question from the audience.
Yeah. Oh, this is Abdelaziz from Gather Escapes. So my question is about advanced manufacturing. on top of the benefits that you just mentioned about advanced manufacturing, doing things faster and better and safer, what do you think about advanced manufacturing helping us on the fronts of social improvement, economical improvement, and sustainability? What I mean is being able to decentralize factories while not being so afraid of losing quality, because you can still control quality, being centralized, cutting time on lead time on shipping, and removing shipping completely for sustainability reasons. So all of these coming together, I don't think we're there yet, but also allowing for individualism to play a role, because people now, individuals, can all be also enabled to act as manufacturers and realize their individual products where they weren't. So where are we today, and where do you see us in the future?
There's a couple of really good questions there, and I do think, well, first of all, I'll deal with the shipping, the idea of shipping, or where you do advanced manufacturing. And the way that I think about it is that, particularly after COVID, I think every country was revealed to every country what the gaps of their capability to make things, sovereign capability, whether it's medical or food and beverage. We need, as all nations, when we're faced with things like pandemics, to be able to do advanced manufacturing at a certain scale and quality and assurance that we can look after ourselves. So I think all countries all around the world now are really shoring up their advanced manufacturing capability so that they can have some sovereign capability. It's difficult for countries like Australia, for instance, because we're a small population, we're embedded in global supply chains to survive a lot. It might be the same here in Saudi, I don't know the detail, but I think what you're going to see is every country start to build capability that may have once let go and thought that actually, well, that country does this, we do services. That's what Australia has done for the last 30 years. So it's a first time in Australia that we're building capability as fast as we can in advanced manufacturing. It's really important, though, to know that we will always be a trading nation, and I'm sure that to a degree Saudi Arabia would be the same. So we need to make sure that we're competitive globally, and this is where it comes, to be able to make something as individuals and to be able to make it at a certain quality. So we need to be competing in these global supply chains, and I think sustainability is a really good way to look at that. If you were in an industry like the car automotive industry, for instance, Mercedes will not let you be part of their global supply chain and make anything for them unless you can tell them exactly where a product's come from, what's in it, what quality it is there any slave labour in it, etc., etc. So that is a massive digital project. So our advanced manufacturing capability has to be able to, acquire this knowledge, digitise it, put it into systems, and make sure that carries along with the project. So that sort of data. So that means that we're doing things in a sophisticated way, and I think countries across the globe are doing the same. So I wouldn't doubt that that's also happening here. Does that help? Yeah. Well, I think, these... Yeah. 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 I would say globally at this time, so I've worked across a lot of industry areas in a policy role with government. I think at this time, all nations are really conscious about their capability to do advanced manufacturing, and they're investing in it really heavily. No one wants to be left out of those global supply chains because you can get locked out of them. So it means that you will never be able to supply into certain markets. It means you'll never build that internal capability. So countries are saying, picking areas which they're going to be great. In Australia, we've decided on 6 major areas. It's a bit boring, but medical and agriculture and food and beverage and defence and space and mining and minerals and recycling, because I know them all. So these are the areas that we've decided, or cluster of areas that we've decided will focus. UAP's just come in under the wings and taken advantage of that in the cultural space as we grow. But these are probably the decisions your government are making as well.
Do we have any other questions from the audience?
السلام عليكم. معكم منى سنبل، فنانة تشكيلية بحضر الدكتوراه في الخزف، ومستخدمة برضو برامج الخوارزميات للذكاء الاصطناعي. أنا حابة على نور الرياض كيف مثلا هي المفاهيم اللي ممكن يستخدموها في يعني في التكنولوجيا المستخدمة، هل يعني في شيء معين خاص أو إنه عشان خاطر يعني في عندهم كونسيبت معين للأعمال؟
Do you want to take this or should I? Do you want me to say it in English or Arabic? Okay. Okay. What she asked is about, is there any specific technology used in Noor Riyadh festival? No, we do not specify any specific technology. As long as it's a very beautiful artwork, it all depends on the artist himself or herself and what they put on the table, honestly. And what's important is just using light within the artworks. Do you want to add?
No, absolutely. So we encourage the artists to use any technology that they want to, and but as Noor said, Noor Riyadh has light as a medium. So the only restraint is that at some point you have to have projected light or sculptural light. Or light in some way or form as part of your work. But other than that, we welcome as many new and innovative and different experimental technologies.
بالفعل هو ده قصدي، انه كان المفهوم انه اهم شيء نور الرياض على حسب المسمى اللي موجود عليه. انا دخلت حاولت كذا مره في المواقع، هل انه في ممكن كيف يعني نقدم الافكار كفنانين احنا، كيف نقدم الافكار اذا بالامكان، خصوصا انه انا دخلت دوره الفن العام هذا الاسبوع في البينالي، فتحت لنا مدارك جدا كثيره على يعني هذا الفن وكيف الواحد ممكن انه يقدمه. هل في مثلا موقع معين أو هل كيف إنه ممكن الواحد يشارك فيه؟
طبعاً of course Noor Riyadh is depends on the curator. We have curators and that chooses and the artists under the themes. For example, last year's theme was we are gathered under one sky, and the curators studied the whole theme and chose wisely all the artists to follow this theme. Also this year, inshallah, we are gonna do the same process.
No, absolutely that. So nothing to add. Thank you.
عفواً.
Any further questions? Oh, great.
Hello, it's not just a question, but I don't understand the idea. Any artist can submit his artworks to Noor Riyadh, or there is curators who chooses these artists upon the theme of the Noor Riyadh. This is just a small.
No, it's a great question. Thank you. For Noor Riyadh, we appoint every year. We appoint our team or teams of curators. Last year, we had a very, very talented team of curators with leading the exhibition, Light Upon Light, Noor ala Noor, and Susan Davidson and Ranim Farsi, who is also part of the Biennale team programming these talks. Also for the festival, we had Dr. Eiman Elgibreen and also Pan tuned from lighter collection. So we appoint the teams of curators, and then those teams, they are the ones that select the artist. At the moment, we are not doing open calls. We are just working by curatorial selection. But maybe in future years, we will open that door. But if any artist wants to participate, there's actually a way that in our website you can just submit your interest, and that will be communicated to the curatorial team. But it's the curatorial team that makes the appointments. I hope that answers the question. Thank you.
If there's no further questions, we might wrap up tonight. Oh, no, sorry, we do have another question. Microphone coming just over here.
السلام عليكم، شكرا لحضوركم. عندي استفسار بسيط. معكم ثامر الجار الله، أعمل في الأبحاث والتطوير والجودة. الفقرة اللي أحتاج اللي هو معرفتها، هل بالإمكان أن نرى في المستقبل أن تقوم الروبوتات بتقديم الرعاية الطبية؟
I think this is a very good question, and I'm glad we've got an interpreter. The medical and health industries in terms of robotics is fated globally to be the biggest area of robotics application. Partly because it's really, you need so many systems in a medical system. You keep things sterilised, you can attend to patients, you need to dispense medicine. There are so many parts that can be automated. And in Australia, one of the biggest areas that's important around health systems is data, and hospitals collect a lot of data. Like hospitals are like a very large digital twin. Every aspect of the business is actually already collecting a lot of data, and that can be used to transform services quite quickly. Also in the health and medical industries, when you want to make an improvement in those industries, they know how much it costs to keep patients in hospital. And so what they do is they do health economics studies, and they say, it costs, $1,700 a day to keep someone who should be at home. And so one of our projects, for instance, is to refurbish a home, put in new handles or doors or things that allow people with a spinal injury to go home and leave the hospital and safely go home. So they will spend quite a significant amount of money solving that problem because they understand the value of it in terms of economic terms for hospitals and health and the society. So it is fated to be the biggest area of investment probably for the next decade. So I would work there hard if you wanted to.
شكرا عمل جيد. شكرا.
I find it quite extraordinary that we can, with new technologies and robotics, jump from the creative industries into hospitals and even defence and so on.
I think it's a never-ending conversation.
Yes.
We might wrap up this evening's panel. I'd like to thank all of the panellists for your time this evening, and I'd like to thank Diriyah Biennale for hosting us and allowing us this opportunity. So thank you very much.